The glasses were already on the table when the deal locked shut. No exits, no second chances. 12 men boxed into a private room, all smiling, all pretending this was just a celebration. One mistake here and someone wouldn't make it back to the street. They called it a victory dinner. That was the lie. It was February drifting into March 1938. Manhattan money, Manhattan power, Manhattan arrogance. Linen tablecloth, silverware heavy enough to feel important. Lawyers in tailored suits congratulating themselves for winning something they didn't fully understand. At the center of it all sat a man who wasn't supposed to be here at all. Lucky Luciano had been caged for 2 years. Maximum security upstate. 30 to 50 on paper, which meant life in reality. The prosecutor who put him there had built his reputation on Charlie's back, and that reputation needed one thing above all else: Charlie staying buried. But the system had a flaw, it always does, and Charlie had men who knew how to press on cracks without making noise. Even behind concrete and steel, he still decided things. Territory still shifted when he nodded. Money still moved when he went quiet. Messages flowed through the right mouths at the right times. Mayor, Frank. Old loyalties that didn't rust. And while the newspapers said he was finished, appeals were stacking up. Real ones, dangerous ones. That's when a new face appeared. Richard Morrison, 43, polished, calm, the kind of lawyer who spoke softly and let judges lean in. Appeals specialist. Manhattan pedigree. He walked into Charlie's legal orbit with confidence and just enough hunger. He said he'd found problems in the trial. Serious ones, jury instructions, procedure, constitutional rot under the paint. Charlie's lead attorney didn't like him at first. 2 years of failure does that to a man, but Morrison had something better than enthusiasm. He had access, names, favors, quiet leverage he claimed other lawyers were too scared to touch, so they let him in. What no one at that table knew yet was simple. Morrison didn't work for Charlie. He worked for the man who needed Charlie to never see daylight again. The prosecutor had a problem. Appeals don't care about reputations. If Charlie walked, everything collapsed. So a different solution was approved. One that didn't leave fingerprints. One that ended inside a prison infirmary with a clean cause of death. Morrison's role was surgical. Earn trust, create proximity, choose the moment. And he chose a dinner, not loud, not public, no crowds, just enough people to make it look legitimate. Lawyers, funders. One friend who mattered more than all of them combined. Mayor Lansky. If Mayor showed, no one would question anything. Morrison made sure the invitation reached him. Mayor accepted. From that moment on, the clock was running. Charlie couldn't just walk out of prison, but rules bend when money talks quietly. Guards looked the other way. Paperwork appeared. A legal consultation that didn't happen in a courthouse. March 19th was cleared. Manhattan would see Lucky Luciano again, for a few hours. Morrison prepared everything like a man planning a funeral without deciding who the guest of honor would be. Private room, trusted staff, expensive champagne. The kind of bottle men only open when they think they've already won. The poison came last, liquid, invisible, fast enough that questions wouldn't matter. By the time symptoms showed, Charlie would be back behind bars, another inmate who just didn't wake up. Natural causes, clean. The plan didn't require luck, just timing. And Morrison was certain of both. What he didn't understand was this. Lucky Luciano didn't survive by trusting plans. He survived by distrusting rituals. And the most dangerous ritual of all was raising a glass when everyone else told you it was safe. The night hadn't even started yet. And already someone at that table was marked. Someone just didn't know which one. Charlie didn't celebrate victories. He counted them, weighed them, and waited for the invoice. So when Morrison started showing up at Dannemora, Charlie watched instead of smiling. Maximum security doesn't leave room for optimism. Concrete teaches patience better than any teacher alive. Morrison came with folders, clean hands, calm voice. He spoke like a man who believed systems could be persuaded if you leaned on the right pressure points. He talked about transcripts, about judges who didn't like being embarrassed, about mistakes that never make headlines but still crack cases open. Charlie listened, asked little, let the man talk. From the outside, it looked like progress. From the inside, it felt like movement, and movement was dangerous. Because while Morrison played the part of the savior, Charlie was still running things the same way he always had. Orders left the prison folded inside legal briefs. Decisions came back disguised as updates. Territory didn't freeze just because he was locked up. It adjusted. Mayor handled the translations. Frank kept the street calm. Loyalty stayed expensive. After a month, Morrison leaned in closer. On his third visit, he brought hope wrapped in certainty. He said he'd found something real. Not noise, not speculation. A procedural misstep so obvious it embarrassed the trial judge. Something an appellate court couldn't ignore without looking dirty. Charlie didn't nod. He leaned forward. How real? Morrison didn't rush the answer. He smiled like a man who already knew the ending. Real enough to justify a toast. That word hung there. Toasts were public. Toasts were careless. Toasts were how men lowered their guard. Charlie reminded him where he was. I don't exactly get out much. Morrison was ready for that. He said the celebration wasn't for the press. It wasn't for the city. It was for the people bleeding money and time to keep Charlie breathing. A quiet dinner, private room, trusted faces, a moment to acknowledge momentum. The suggestion slid across the table like it belonged there. Charlie didn't answer right away. That's when Morrison named the location. Delmonico S. Old Money. Old Walls. A place that didn't ask questions if the bills were paid correctly. Charlie approved it, not because he believed in the appeal, because he wanted to see who showed up. The paperwork moved fast after that, faster than it should have. Guards suddenly cooperative. Forms stamped by men who didn't ask follow-ups. A legal transfer that bent just enough to look official if no one stared too long. March 19th. Morrison handled the rest with precision. Invitations handwritten. Lawyers confirmed. Financiers committed. And then there was Mayor. If Mayor declined, the night died quietly. He didn't. That was the moment Morrison knew the room would be full. The poison was sourced through a man who never asked names. Liquid, clean, designed to mimic the body giving up on itself. Heart, lungs, lights out. Morrison practiced the sequence in his head until it felt automatic. Toast, glasses, timing, exit, no mess. No witnesses who understood what they'd seen. Charlie would be gone and the prosecutor's problem would dissolve with him. By the time March 19th arrived, Morrison wasn't nervous. He was confident. That confidence followed him into the restaurant. What he didn't see was the second set of eyes already measuring the room, not watching him, watching everything else. Because while Morrison was planning a perfect ending, someone else had already decided this dinner wouldn't end the way it was supposed to, and the champagne hadn't even been opened yet. Charlie arrived early, not by choice, by design. 6:45. Two guards walked him in and stopped at the door like they belonged there. They didn't. They were paid to forget what they saw and wait outside until the night ended. Charlie wore a suit brought from the street, clean lines, sharp fit. For a moment the prison didn't exist. Neither did the years waiting on paper. Around the table sat men who pretended this was normal. Lawyers, funders, faces trained to smile while calculating risk. Jacob Rosenbaum was already talking strategy. The others nodded along like hope was something you could schedule. Morrison played host, polite, relaxed, exactly how a man acts when he believes the danger is already handled. Mayor was there. That mattered. The food came out heavy and expensive. Oysters, steak, wine that tasted like money. Conversation flowed the way it always does when men think they're ahead of the curve. Charlie said little, watched more. At 8:30, Morrison caught the waiter's eye. That was the signal. The bottle arrived wrapped in ceremony. Old year, high price. The kind of champagne meant to mark endings and beginnings at the same time. 12 glasses poured, set carefully on a tray like they were all equal. They were. Morrison stood. He spoke about effort, about progress, about washing away bad verdicts and bad history. The table approved of the words because they wanted them to be true. Then he picked up the tray. This was the part he'd rehearsed. One glass at a time. Clockwise, calm hands, no rush. The 11th glass was the important one. That one carried the solution. 10 glasses left the tray. Then Morrison stopped in front of Charlie. This one's yours. Charlie took it, set it down, no hesitation, no reaction. Morrison moved on, handed the last glass to Mayer, then raised his own separate from the rest. Clean, safe. To Charlie, he said, to beating the system. The room followed him, glasses lifted, smiles locked in. And in that narrow window, less than 2 seconds, Charlie reached across the table. He didn't look at anyone. He picked up Mayer's glass and slid his own into Mayer's hand. It looked like nothing, like a man adjusting space, like habit. Mayer felt it and understood immediately. Their eyes met for half a breath. Charlie shrugged. Old rule, never drink from the glass placed in front of you. Morrison didn't see it. He was already drinking the moment. Gentlemen, he said, this is just the beginning. The room drank. Charlie swallowed from Mayer's glass. Mayer raised Charlie's glass, sniffed, smiled, and didn't drink. He let the rim touch his lips and stopped. Seconds passed. Charlie kept talking, laughing softly, alive. Morrison waited 5 seconds, 10. Then his chest tightened. The burn climbed his throat fast and mean. His vision blurred before he could ask a question he already knew the answer to. He collapsed. The sound was wrong, too heavy, too final. His body seized, foam at his mouth. Panic erupted around him like a bad play breaking apart. Mayer stayed seated. Charlie stood and looked down. 2 minutes later, Richard Morrison was dead. The ambulance came too late. The police asked the wrong questions. The answer they wanted was easy: heart attack. After the room emptied, Charlie and Mayer stayed behind. Mayer finally spoke. That glass was meant for you. Charlie nodded. I figured. You knew. I never drink the first glass. Silence settled. Morrison had been a message, a failed one, and somewhere far from that table, a man who thought he'd planned everything had just lost his last move. But the consequences weren't finished yet, because now someone else knew their play had been seen, and the next move wouldn't be as polite. They didn't rush the questions. That's how you know the answer was already chosen. Police came in calm, not aggressive, not curious. A dead attorney at a business dinner fit a simple narrative. Overworked. Stress. Middle age, no struggle. No witnesses saying the wrong thing. The body was removed, statements taken, everyone released. The city swallowed it whole. When the door finally closed, Mayer reached for the glass still sitting in front of him, untouched. He turned it slightly, just enough for the light to catch the stem. There it was, a tiny scratch, barely there, invisible unless you were looking for it. I had the waiter mark it, Mayer said quietly. Our waiter. Charlie picked it up, ran his thumb over the mark. You'd miss it if you weren't trained to look for small things that kill big men. You knew before tonight, Charlie said. Mayer nodded. Not the method, just the direction. 3 days earlier, a whisper had come out of the district attorney's office. Nothing specific. Just a warning that something was moving and Morrison's name was attached to it. So Mayer didn't stop the dinner. He studied it. He placed one of their own men on the floor, watched Morrison all week, saw the meetings, the cash. The vial passed like a secret nobody thought anyone else deserved to notice. I wanted him to commit, Mayer said. If we pulled away, he'd try again, somewhere darker. Charlie exhaled slowly. You trusted me to switch. Mayer smiled. You always do. What if I hadn't? I would have knocked it out of your hand. That was the difference, planning for habit, not hope. Morrison wasn't an accident, he was an answer, one that closed a door without slamming it. Charlie went back upstate that night. Same cell, same walls, same sentence. Nothing on the surface had changed. But somewhere downtown, a prosecutor read the report and understood exactly what had happened. His man was dead, and worse, his man had failed. After that, there were no more quiet solutions. No clever shortcuts, too risky, too many variables, so the system did what it always does when force fails. It stalled, appeals denied, pressure applied, time weaponized. Charlie would serve years more before the world shifted again. War, deals, exile. But none of that mattered in that room. What mattered was this. Charlie didn't survive because he knew the glass was poisoned. He survived because he never assumed it was. One habit, one quiet rule taught long before power ever showed up. Never trust the glass they hand you. Because the man making the toast might already be planning your funeral. And if you don't notice, you'll die smiling.